you can spend a lot of time on your leads and still not be growing if you're not closing on your estimates. And so here I want to show how to turn your sales process into a measurable system. And so we're going to be separating things like lead volume from execution. And then once you can analyze it, you can start to coach, your reps, and you can reallocate your leads. And it'll just give you some, more confidence. And so I'm going to show you to calculate, how many estimates were given, your estimate runs, how many were closed, and then your close rate by month. And then also show you how to create this chart with a target band, and then finally show you how to show your close rate here by your sales rep and by your lead source. And then also this is just showing a count because, if Alex Martinez only had, 2 direct mail or 5 direct mail leads, then maybe that's not enough to coach yet. He hasn't had enough, essentially practice yet. Okay, so we have this pretty in-depth data source, and I try to create these as realistic as possible, but we don't need all these columns. But what it's showing is, when was your lead created? What is the lead ID? Your lead source? The month of the lead, of when you got the lead type, customer type, location, all that stuff. But the main things we're going to need are going to be the month, the lead source, where your lead's coming from, and then did you give them an estimate? And then did you close the deal? And so that's all we're going to need. But this is a very in-depth, data source. And if you want the data source, there's a link to download it. And if you can't find it, just shoot me an email. But let's get started. So what we need first is we need to get a list of every month in the year, and then we need to calculate these variables here. So what I'll do is I'll just type in the word month and then the word January, and then just drag this down until you see December. Let me center everything. Okay, so the next thing I need is estimates. And what we have here in the data is everything's in a table. And you can see here table design. And it's called, just table. You can call it, table, lead table, or, whatever you want to call it. And so if you don't have your data in a table, just put your cursor anywhere in the data set and press Ctrl+T. I'll show you. Let me just create. I'll just put this here just to show you. So say you have something like this, if you press Ctrl+T inside the data, this little dialog box will come up, and then OK. And then now you have that table. But there's a lot of benefits to using a table, which I'm going to show you while I build this out. So first what we need is the number of estimates by month. And so over here, what you'll see in column X here, it's just binary, true or false. Was an estimate given? So we just need to count the number of times in this column X, the estimate run flag is true, and then, is February, is March. And so the way you can do that is with the COUNTIFS function, because the S stands for multiple criteria. So what you need is true in the estimate column and January for the month. And so we know that the name of the table is TBL for table. And so if you type it in your formula, it pulls up here and you can see it. So then you just open your bracket. And this is one of the benefits of the table. I mean, there's many benefits, but this is one of them. So we can start with, you can just type in, ES for estimate, and then run flag, press tab, and then comma, and then we want true. And it's text, so you need to put it in quotations, but Excel has a weird thing where if it's the word true or false, then you don't need quotations, but I'll just put it in quotations. And then the next thing we need is table, and then we need the month, and then we know that that's in cell B3, the little blue behind here. Close your formula, and you can see there were 64 estimates in January, right, 53, so on and so forth. So the next thing we need is we need to find how many were closed, right? So over here we have a sold flag. So it's essentially the same thing. How many of the estimates were closed? And so what you can see is we need to count the number of times this is true and the number of times this is true, right? Was it sold? And so the way we do that is the same way. You can see in the formula, we need to count number of times the estimate flag is true, number of times the sold flag is true, and where the month is January. Let me just copy this over here just to make it a little bit easier. Copy this, paste it here. Okay. So equals COUNTIFS and then table. And then with COUNTIFS, the sequencing doesn't matter. You can do the month first, you can do the estimate first, you can do the close first. It doesn't matter. With things like SUMIFS or AVERAGEFS or MAXIFS value first. Like if you're trying to sum something based off of the month, say January, then you need to do the numerical column, the value column first. But in this example for COUNTIFS, you don't need to do that. So it's COUNTIFS, and then you can do month first. That's fine. So we know month is in cell B3, table, comma, and then B3. And then next we need the table, and then you need estimate run flag. This time I won't use parentheses, or sorry, quotations. And then the final thing we need is the closed. Oh, it's not, it was called sold, I think. Yeah, sold flag. True. And now you have 28. And then you can just double click that down. And now to get this percentage, you just divide the two. 28 divided by 64. And then press Ctrl+Shift+5 to format it as a percent. And then we have a target close rate. And so your target close rate, you can just choose whatever you want, but it's to create that line at the top, the straight line across. And so let's just say 45%. But underneath, type in equals and then 45. Or equals F3. Because now we can make a dynamic, we can make a dynamic target. Okay, so here, if you want to create this chart, and what we have the number of runs as the blue columns, and then we have the close rate as the red line, and then we have the benchmark or the target as the light green line. And so all you have to do is highlight the month, and then press Control, highlight the close rate. Oh, sorry. Highlight month and estimates, and then press Control, and then highlight the close rate, and then the target close rate. And then you go to click Insert. You can do recommended charts, and you can already see this is almost there, but it's not quite there, because the problem is you can't see the red. And the reason you can't see the red is because you sort of can, but it's as a column, which doesn't make sense. We don't learn it as a column, and we don't learn it on this axis. We don't want 44% to be on the same axis where 64 is, because it'll just be at the very bottom. It won't show. So click on all charts, and then down here you'll see combo, and then where these two are, first we want the target close rate to be a secondary axis, and now we have the line. And we want the same thing for the close rate here, but we don't want it to be a column. We want it to also be a line. So you can just click the third one here. And now we're good. So what did we call this here? Close rate on estimates. So here, close rate on run estimates. Let's just add, just to make it a little bit easier, by month with volume. And we can do close rate. We can add the percentage here. And then what I'll do is I'll just clean this up a little bit. So make it a little bit bigger, make this a little bit smaller. And then what we can do is if you want to show some values, like say if you just click on here and then you click the crosshair, and then data labels, it's going to be too noisy. We don't want all that. So whichever value you want to show, like if you want to show just the columns or just this line, then you can click on that and then click data labels, and then you can see here. You make it white, bold, and I won't format this much more, but if you want to move a single value, just click on it twice, and then you can drag it away, and then it'll sort of be out of the way. Okay, so we got that one out of the way. So the next one we want to do is we want to create this sort of table here that's going to be dynamic with a benchmark, right, where things will automatically update. And then we want it to be grayed out based on a certain value. So what we're going to do first is actually not this. We're going to do this first. But before doing that, we need to get a unique list of the sales rep here and a unique list of the lead source. Let me just call this lead source. Well, I guess I got to be able to spell it right. Lead source. Okay, so to get a unique list of the lead source, what we need to do, here, let me type in again, lead source, and then we want to use the unique function. So the unique function will just make a unique list. So if there's 10 values of one name or of one source, it'll remove all that and condense it into one. 10 of the same values. If there's 100 values and there's 10 different unique ones, it'll return just the unique. And we know that it's in the table, and we know that it's called lead source. So equals unique table lead source, close your bracket, and then close your formula, and then you have it here. And also, I'll show you a little function that maybe you'll find valuable. If you want to sort this, alphabetically, then you can just put the sort function before unique, and then it'll sort it this way. And so now what I'll do is I'll highlight this, I'll press Ctrl+C and then Ctrl+Shift+V to remove the formula. And then now we need to do the exact same thing, but we want to do it by the cells rep on top. And so we're going to do the exact same thing, but this time I'm going to type sort unique, right? And so here the sort function's already going to be there because I want it to be alphabetical across the top. And then we know it's the table, and then we know it's the cells rep name here. Or you close the bracket to close the table range, and then again with the parentheses, and again with the parentheses again to close everything, and press enter, and now you have this. So again, I'll highlight this, and then I'll press Control, and then I'll press Ctrl+Shift+V to remove the formula. And I'll show you one other little trick, but instead of doing this to get them all across the top, just highlight everything, Ctrl+C, and then right-click here, and then press ST. And that's paste special transpose, because we don't want them to be in the column. We want them to be across the row. So that's how we can do that. Okay. So actually what we're going to do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it here as well, because remember, we want the table at the bottom to do the counts. So what we want to do is we just want to count, how many times here was an estimate given by sales rep and by lead source. And so if you remember, we just want to COUNTIFS and then table. And so we need 3 different variables, right? We need 3. So 1, the rep, 2, the builder or the lead source, and then 3 is going to be the estimate flag is true. So you can start anywhere essentially with any of those 3, but we'll do true here. We'll do table again. We'll do sales rep name, which we know is here in cell C34. And then the final one is going to be the table, lead source, and that's going to be right here, right? So there's 2. So what you might want to do in the table above, like here, is just pick something to where you don't think it's worrisome, meaning, okay, Alex has only given 2 estimates and he, none of them turned into customers. Maybe that's not too bad. But if it was 10 and none of them turned into customers, it's like, okay, like we got a problem here. So the next thing we want to do is we want to drag this over and then drag this down. But what you'll notice is that you're getting errors, and the reason you're not getting errors, you're getting zeros. But the reason for that is because this is all changing. So like you can sort of see the red behind here. So that's the lead source. But as I drag it over, the lead source has now changed to what's under Alex Martinez. So we don't want to do that. We want to do what's called absolute referencing. This is relative referencing. As you drag it across it, the formula moves as well. But we want to lock the columns and lock the rows, right? To make it absolute. Well, absolute at the column level and absolute at the row level. You could also make it just completely absolute to where whenever you drag it over or down, it never changes. And there's definitely scenarios where you might want to do that. So the way you do that is anywhere you see the column here, so the red in the formula, put the $ before the letter, because the letters are columns. We want to lock the column. And in Excel, letters are columns. And then anywhere you see the blue, which is the row, it's not always going to be blue, just FYI, I'm just using that as an example. But here it's blue, so we want to, as we drag it over, we want Alex to turn, to go to Casey, but we don't want it to change as we go down. We don't want Alex to change, to the value of builder and partner. So you put a $ before the number, not before the letter. And so we have that here. So one more thing with tables, you're still going to get this error because you'll see estimate run flag has changed to system type. But the way around that is just copy this and then paste it. And so now you have it for all the values. And so now what it's going to do is it's going to let you change the variable up here, meaning if there was less than a certain amount here, maybe you don't even want to, you don't even want it to show. Like, for example, right here, Casey Johnson for outbound as, if as an SDR, as a sales dev, he doesn't even have any estimates given, meaning you don't want it to show 0 here, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to say, like, if this is less than a certain number, then just return a dash. Don't even, don't even do the formula. But before doing that, I want to show you how to calculate the ones that do have a formula. So essentially what we have to do is we have to take the count down here, and then that's the denominator, the bottom of the formula, and then on the top we want to add the sales, right? So out of the total estimates given, how many of them were sold. And so okay, so the way we do that is we need to just take this formula that we've already done here, because it's already it's already written correctly, and it has the, the absolute and relative references. So we're just going to paste it here, but we need to change this and just drag this up here, because if you remember, it was locked. So we have that. And what we want to do, I know it's a little bit confusing, but it all makes sense. We want to divide it by the same exact thing, right? But we want to add one more criteria to the numerator, and that criteria is going to be, what was it, sold? Yeah, the sold flag, comma, and then we want that to be true as well. And now you have a percentage. But I'm going to disregard this percentage because I want to wrap all of this formula with an if statement, meaning if this is less than, well, I think I used 5 on the other one. No, 10. Okay, so if this is less than 10, we just want to show a dash. We don't want to show anything else, because it's not enough information to be able to make decisions yet. Maybe it's a new hire. So equals if, and then open your bracket. If this is less than 10, then give me a dash. Otherwise, do that whole formula, right? And then you can press enter, and you can have a dash because it's less than 10. And then I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it across. And so now we sort of have what we're looking for, right? So anything that's less than 10 is not showing. You could change that. I mean, if you wanted it to be 5, I'll do 5 just to have more values, essentially. But the problem here is that, yeah, out of 5 estimates, Alex closed 0 for Facebook, right? And so it just tells you Facebook ads could be weak. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to show you how to do a benchmark to where anything less than the benchmark amount is going to be red. And so let's do that. Well, actually, before I do that, let me add the other two. Let me add the overall by rep, and then this is, let me just narrow this down. This is going to be overall by lead source. It's super straightforward to do. I'll show you. So you can just, with this one, we don't want the if statement. We just want this formula here. We don't need the if statement. And so here, this is going to be overall by lead source. So we just have to remove the sales rep. And so essentially anywhere you see the sales rep, you can just delete that section out. Like this here. And then this here. And then you have that. And you can just drag this down and press Ctrl+Shift and the number 5. And then here is overall by rep. So it's pretty much the same thing. We don't want the if statement, but instead of not wanting the sales rep, now we don't want the lead source. So anywhere you see the lead source, just cut that out here, and then cut that out here, and then you should be good. You can copy and paste that across. Okay, so now we can finish this up and we can do the benchmark. Maybe you want the benchmark here, and say the benchmark is 45%. So now you can highlight this, you can hold down Control and highlight everything else. And then go to Home, Conditional Formatting, and then highlight cells less than, and then click on 40. And then you have that, and now you have a dynamic, right? And if you wanted to, and the other one what I did is if it was a dash, I made it gray. So what you can do is highlight this range, go to Home, Conditional Formatting, highlight cells, text that contains, and then do the dash. But let's change it up and let's do a custom format. And we can do like a fill of, say, gray. And so now you can see you have the gray fill for that. But anyways, I know this is a long one, 21 minutes. And so if you have any questions, just shoot me an email, questions@databoards.io. And so, yeah, shoot me an email there. If you want the file, there's a link to download it. If you can't find it, shoot me an email. But just make sure to tell me, hey, hey, Ryan, can you shoot me the file for the estimates run per rep? And we can go from there. And also, if you need some help, getting your data structured in a proper way, then let me know. I mean, this should be something you could recreate from like your Service Titan export or whatever software you're using. But you don't really, if you're wanting to calculate just this, then all you need really are these four. I think it was 4 columns, right? Well, I guess you also need a time. And so, but there's a lot more you could do with this, right? So if you have, first contact date, then you could do, how many estimates were given based on the time it took to contact them, because the shorter the window is from the time you get the lead to the time you contact the lead, the higher the close rate is, right? But anyways, that's all I got for this one, and I will see you in future videos.